Hi, this is Emily Ainelli, and I am male to female transgender. And I don't know really what to talk about today. I am feeling a little depressed, and I have quite a few friends who are going through depression also. And some also are struggling very badly that they also feel like they don't want to live anymore. And I know those kind of feelings because I have gone through that myself. And I have friends who I talk to who express these feelings to me. And sometimes I just don't know how to help them, how to talk to them and make them feel better about their situation. We all have different situations. We're not all alike. So whatever struggle I may have may be different from a friend of mine. We may both be transgender, but there's a lot of factors that go into what makes us feel the way we do. And depression is very common with people like myself who struggle with gender identity. I've struggled my whole life essentially since I was a little boy of 3, and I remember vividly taking dresses that belonged to my sister to feel comfortable and to try to deal with my inner feelings. And it was hard. But the thing is that I grew up and I couldn't tell anyone how I truly felt inside. It was very painful for me. And I kept it to myself. And I think that it's more important today to share what's going on. But the sad reality is that even if you share your deepest, most inner feelings, you may not get the sympathy or support that you hope to, and that could wind up making you feel worse. Life is not an easy situation, especially when you're dealing with difference and something that not many people understand. Even families struggle with issues like transgender. Um, it's not an easy thing to talk about to anybody. And I know because I live it and I struggle with it every day. And I never had the feelings that I could talk, not even to my parents or my sisters. I loved them, but I never felt comfortable talking to them. So I kept it inside and I withdrew. And I lived a painful life of isolation and quietness. And I felt very depressed growing up. And I only had my sense of escaping by cross dressing and just doing what I thought was the right thing to do growing up as a young boy, which was to be attentive to my schoolwork and to be a participant in sports. I was into sports. I loved baseball. I always did, and I still do. And I used to sit with my mom and we would watch Met games growing up. I still remember the 1969 Mets and their miracle win over the Baltimore Orioles. I was only 8 years old at the time. I was in the third grade, and I still remember that as if it was yesterday. And those were the things that helped me cope. But deep down inside, I was a girl struggling to be myself, even though I had to wear this veneer of being a boy. which didn't feel right for me. And I struggled with that, and I was in a lot of pain. But I never could come out, and I could never tell anybody. And it was very hard for me to deal with this. And I just feel like life is very hard sometimes, especially for people who struggle. Um, we all have struggles, and we all have feelings that we may be different from the so-called normality. I don't even know what normal means, to be honest with you. And I've asked this question on other videos I've done. I mean, if you look it up in the dictionary, normal, you may get a definition, but I don't really know what it means, to be honest. I've never felt normal, and I'm not ashamed to be who I am. I mean, it took me years to come to grips with my transgender identity, and I was very, very quiet and shy, and I struggled, and I was very emotional about my situation, and I struggled with severe depression, and I even at times contemplated suicide and even attempted it. And luckily, I was unsuccessful. I tried many times. I tried at least 3 times, but I was unsuccessful, and thank God, because I'm now a father of a son who's autistic, and my son needs me in his life. And if I did succeed at my attempt, my son would be fatherless. And that's not the answer. Suicide is a temporary solution, and it's permanent. I mean, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary situation. And we must realize that things can get better. We just have to have hope, and we have to believe that we can get better. And if we need to see medical doctors and therapists, we should. There's no shame in that. What is wrong with getting help if that's what you need? We all can use someone to talk to. If it's a friend, a family member, someone you trust, you should. There's no shame in that. And sometimes it gets to a point where you may even need to go see a doctor. And there's no shame in that. We all need to find someone to talk to. I tend to isolate, and I have very few friends. Is it by choice? No. But I've struggled with my gender identity, and I, as a result of coming out, lost my job in the process. So I don't live a life that most normal people do. I'm not working. In fact, I'm out on disability, and I struggle with bipolar disorder, and I've struggled with severe depression, and I've attempted suicide. But I am a fighter. I have to be. I have no choice. I lost my dad to suicide, and I lost my mom in a painful way too, seeing her just lose her will to live. And my mom I lost over 20 years ago, 25 now, and my dad I lost 6 years ago to suicide, and my mom, she just lost her will to live in the hospital, starving herself to death. And it was horrible, horrible. I can't tell you the emotional pain that I went through. But it was very, very sad. And I can get all emotional, and I can cry. I've done it before. And I hope that I can try to deal with it the best that I can. But it was very hard for me. And the only way I could deal with those internal struggles and the pain and the tragedy was to go into my own little world where I could dress and be the girl that I always knew I was. I wasn't hurting anybody. I was just doing what I thought was the right thing. And I felt that this was the right thing for me. I identified as a girl, and I still do. And I always will. That's why I seek help. I'm on hormone replacement therapy. I've been on it now for 3 years. I started in June of 2012. Now we're in June of 2015. So I'm at my 3-year anniversary mark. And I'm living full time as a woman since September of 2012. So I'll be at the 3-year anniversary mark in September 2015. Was it a hard decision to make? Of course it was. To be honest with you, I never would have transitioned. But my dad's suicide and my best friend who helped me cope through that and got me through my father's tragic death died 2 years later, unexpectedly at the age of 40, leaving behind a wife and son. And when I went to his funeral, or his wake, I should say, I was totally devastated. And I just couldn't deal with it. And I had to go back into therapy. And I started therapy, and I went for a year, and then I realized what I knew all along, that I was a woman trapped in a man's body. I don't know what the definition of that really means, but I identified as a female. I identified as a girl all along, since the tender age of 3. And I can't escape that. That's just who I am. And I am not ashamed anymore. I used to live in fear. I used to live with guilt. I used to hate myself. But why? It doesn't make any sense to hate who you are. There's no reason to hate yourself. I'm just being who I am. And it's natural. There's nothing wrong with it. If I could tell people who struggle with their gender or their sexual identity or whatever, I would tell you just from my own personal experiences that it isn't easy to come to terms with your situation. And it may take you years. It took me 50 years to finally come to terms with it and to feel that I had to come out. I really had no choice. It was either come out or just end my life, and I couldn't do that because I have a son who needs me. But I would tell you that you really have to plan according to how you feel and when the time is right for you. You're not alone. There are so many people that are in your situation. And the worst thing you can do is to wallow in your depression and to feel depressed to a point where you feel like you can't take it anymore and you just want to end your life. That isn't the way to go. I know, and I learned the hard way. But I'm grateful to be here, talking and sharing my story. I have a story to tell, and I'm not going to hide it anymore. And if I can help someone, my main focus is my son. He's my life. He means the world to me. And I need to be there for him. And if there's anybody else out there who needs help, and I can lend a hand in any way I can, I will. I'm not perfect, and I never said I was. But if you need help, and you need to reach out to someone, I would suggest you call the suicide hotline, the Trevor hotline. There are many resources. Find your local LGBT center where you can get help and support. There's help out there. You just have to find it and not be afraid to be who you are. Emily, love you.